because earlier Andrew Neil sat down with the senior Tory Brexiteer, Jacob Rees Mogg.
Rees Mogg, it's been reported that Brexiteers celebrated the defeat of Theresa May's deal last night with glasses of champagne at your London townhouse. Is that true?
I'd look at it more as a meeting with a drink rather than a grand celebration. It was just people coming around after the vote to have a drink and discuss what the next steps are, which is, I think, the most interesting part of it. A celebration would imply we were at an end point, and I don't think even the most optimistic commentator would say that we're at an end point.
No, indeed, we could be in for lots more uncertainty, even turmoil. Did it never cross your mind that you might be toasting the demise of the best Brexit you could get, and that you might end up with a softer Brexit or no Brexit at all?
I think to get to no Brexit would be extraordinarily difficult. The law has been passed to deliver Brexit. That clicks in on the 29th of March, other things being equal. And the Labour Party is still saying, Jeremy Corbyn said today, still saying that it believes on delivering on the vote of June 2016. So I think no Brexit is very hard to achieve. So that leaves the issue of a softer Brexit. Well, it couldn't be much softer than was in with the withdrawal agreement. So the risk on that is, of course, there. It could be even softer. But as that isn't really Brexit anyway, that is a relatively modest risk to be taking.
You told ITV that, and I quote, people did not vote for a deal, they voted to leave. But that's not true, is it? The Vote Leave campaign consistently told us we'd leave on a deal. Indeed, it would be the biggest, the best, the easiest deal in history. They didn't say no deal.
Various individuals said various things throughout the campaign on both sides about what would happen in the event of a vote to leave or a vote not to leave. The government has the responsibility of implementing policy, right, which I think people who voted
But who in the Vote
understand.
Leave campaign during the referendum said we could leave on no deal?
Well, I think people constantly referred to what Article 50 said. It was a mainstay of discussions that people were having.
I mean, I've got the Vote Leave prospectus here for June 2016 in the run-up to the referendum. It would be possible to negotiate a new settlement with the UK, with the EU, a UK-EU free trade deal before the next general election. No mention of leaving on no deal. People did not vote leave to leave on no deal.
No, I don't think that's right. I think you're taking a short excerpt from one pamphlet. There was a great deal more over the campaign than that, a great deal of discussion about what would happen.
But this is the Vote Leave Fund. I cannot find any Vote Leave reference to the prospect of no deal.
I think you've set a very small net to catch your fish in today.
I mean, you've said on no deal, the world will not end.
Well, that,
I mean, is that your idea of reassurance, that the world will not end?
Well, if you listen to some of the people on the other side of the argument, you'd think that the world was going to end.
Yeah, but there's a lot between their situation now and the world ending. There's a lot, within that continuum, there's a lot that could go wrong.
That's right.
What is the biggest danger if we go down this route?
I think the biggest risk is going to be something that hasn't been identified, because if it had been identified, it would have been dealt with. So that's the bit of your question I can't answer.
So it's a known unknown?
It's an unknown actually. I think if it were known, it could be dealt with. That I accept that there are risks of leaving without a deal, but there are also very considerable opportunities that we can get away from the very high tariffs and non-tariff barriers of the EU.
Well, let's come on to because you have claimed that a no-deal Brexit, with that we could cut tariffs on food, clothes, footwear, and that would lead to cuts in prices. By how much would prices fall on this scenario?
Well, it depends on the individual goods. That if you take, for example, trainers, which you may be more likely to wear than I am, but nonetheless, if a pair of trainers cost of production is £10, £12 with the tariff, that then feeds up with the margin to £36 around £30. So that's the type.
But overall, how much would prices fall?
It would depend on the individual goods. It would depend on the ability of importers to resource goods from cheaper countries. It would depend on the regulatory environment.
Because the Institute for Fiscal Studies, the IFS, it crunched the numbers on quite optimistic assumptions to your way of thinking. It finds that overall prices would fall by only about 1%. And that's hardly transformative, given that it doesn't even reverse the 2% rise in prices since the fall in sterling after the referendum. So
Well,
it's no big deal, is it?
Well, we'd have to see what happened to sterling at the point at which we leave and things are settled. The uncertainty around the UK economy.
But it's already fallen, and that's added to prices, and a cut in tariffs wouldn't compensate
but it's been a boost to
for that.
Our exports. In some areas, the tariff declines are very significant, and the IFS is making, I think, limited assumptions on the changes of behaviour that you would have with the lower
it's
prices.
assuming that all tariffs would be abolished.
But you've also got to deal with non-tariff barriers as well. And those feed in together, because if you don't change the non-tariff barriers, you don't necessarily give the access
but the tariffs
to
are the ones that you
goods.
can calculate. Non-tariffs, as you know, can be more difficult to deal with. The IFSF assumed that all tariffs would be abolished. Would that be your intention under a no-deal Brexit?
If it were up to me, my policy would be on the very first day after we'd left, remove all tariffs on all goods not produced in any quantity in the United Kingdom.
If we were to cut all or most tariffs unilaterally, why would other countries want to do a free trade deal with us? They would have get their free entry to Britain. Why would they bother?
Why would they bother? Because all the economic evidence is that cutting tariffs unilaterally and non-tariff barriers benefits your economy regardless of reciprocity.
So why bother with a trade deal?
Trade deals may open up other people's markets, but one of the best ways of opening up other people's markets is saying, we're going to open our market to you.
But our market would be opened up.
That's right.
Give me an example of which a free trade's been done in which one side already had its borders entirely open and the other didn't.
Well, that's not where the world's been starting from, because the post-war experience has been of very high tariffs.
So there is not an example.
Well, Singapore has done free trade deals, and but Singapore doesn't have or has minimal tariffs on goods going into it. So you could say
Singapore's a service economy
too. Absolutely, but you could say Singapore is an example.
But there's no example of an open economy that had no tariffs doing a free trade deal with another country that had high tariffs. You take away the incentive.
No, you don't. I mean, this is a very mercantilist view of trade. That has historically proved to be incorrect. That if
doesn't stop government holding him. Mr. Trump has that view.
Yeah, I think
the French have often had that view. Emerging markets have had that view. They may be wrong or right, but if you cut our tariffs to zero, you take away any incentive for someone to do a free trade deal.
But every country that has cut its tariffs has benefited economically, regardless of whether it's done it both ways round, because you reduce the cost for consumers, you reduce the input costs for producers, and you concentrate on doing things that you're good at, your comparative advantage. And this is one of the real advantages of Brexit. Trade deals are a bonus if you can get there, but actually the ability to cut your tariffs and open up your economy is extremely beneficial.
You think we should be doing a Canada-style free trade deal with the EU? You say that the EU has always offered such a Canada-style agreement.
It has, yes.
You've said that.
It's been offered by...
But only for Great Britain, not for Northern Ireland. A Canada-style deal would not of its own deal with the Irish border.
I think if you check with Peter Lilly, who is the expert on this, it's been offered to the whole of the United Kingdom.
Well, Theresa May was there and she said what we've seen from the European Union isn't available or on offer for the whole of the UK. It's only on offer for the Great Britain. Northern Ireland would be carved out. Prime Minister was in the room when that was offered.
No, it was offered publicly. It wasn't just offered privately.
Right.
And the public statements seem to indicate it's offered for the whole of the United Kingdom.
The EU's free trade agreement with Canada, which it has, which you've often cited, it still involves physical checks at the border. You've only been to the Northern Irish border once, I understand. You suggested people could be, quote, inspected at the border, as they were during the Troubles.
No, that was to do with a security question.
You don't really understand much about this border, do you?
No.
You're cavalier with it.
No, not at all. You're quoting from something that was clipped from an answer to a much longer, more detailed question. The issue with inspection at the border is that in the deals that we do with other countries, or even with countries where we don't have deals, there are minimal inspections nowadays. Ireland, for example, inspects 1% of non-EU goods going into it. It's not as it was in the old days when every single lorry load of goods was inspected.
But you said we would have the ability, as we had during the Troubles, for people to be inspected.
I think
These are your words.
No, what you need to look at is the full quotation. What I was being asked about was if we had disorder, what would you be able to do at the border? And it's simply been clipped to make it look as if I'm talking about something else.
You and your allies, I would suggest, you shot your boat by trying to topple the Prime Minister prematurely in December, didn't you? I mean, now her deal has gone down to catastrophic defeat. She's much weaker. You should have waited.
Well, actually, if you look at the numbers who voted against the deal yesterday and the numbers who voted against the Prime Minister in the vote of confidence from the Conservative benches, they're almost identical, so I don't think anything has changed in that sense.
You don't think that a challenge now, you're not allowed to do it, but a challenge now would have a better chance of success than you had in December?
I think it would have been too late.
Too late?
There simply isn't the time now. So the timing of the challenge we brought last year was determined essentially by working backwards from the 29th of March.
Well, there can't be another Tory challenge of confidence until December of next year. Mrs May is still leader. But there could be another vote of no confidence in the Commons as a whole. We've had one. There could be another one. If in the consultations Mrs May has said she's now going to make to try and get her deal back on the road again, if she leaned towards some kind of customs union or explicitly ruled out no deal, would you contemplate supporting a no-confidence motion in the Commons?
No. Do I want, if Theresa May went down this route, a very bad deal delivered by her or an even worse deal delivered by Jeremy Corbyn? So, of course, I would rather have a Conservative government doing it, and therefore I will back the government in a no-confidence vote.
So the message to Theresa May tonight is that even if she tilts towards an even softer Brexit, as it would be in your mind, towards a customs union, more realignment, you may not like it, but she need not fear that Jacob Rees Mogg would side with a no-confidence motion.
I'll be completely clear. I will not vote against the government in a no-confidence
even if
vote.
she moves in the direction of a customs union?
Even if she stands on her head on the dispatch box and says that she thinks we should have regulatory alignment, I will not vote in no confidence against her to put a Marxist into 10 Downing Street. I'm a Conservative.
Jacob Rees Mogg, thank you.
Thank you.